All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, before I get started, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Racha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and rule well. Peace and blessings unto the hopeful elect, pushing his word throughout the four corners of the earth in truth, righteousness, and sincerity. To you I say shalom. This is the brother Yeshaya coming at you again through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Back again with another lesson. And this one's going to be entitled Digital Ideas Here. Next is the MOTB. Okay. And I have this article right here. This is from gulfnews.com. And as you can see in the title, it says EU denies entry to 27,000 travelers under the new EES border system. And, as we're going to go into this article, pretty much this is a new digital system that they have in place in these EU nations, that people have to use or have to pretty much register, their fingerprints, photo, the whole biometrics to be able to travel, be able to pass through, and this is just the beginning. This is the start of Esau implementing that, that beast system, and we understand where this is going, right? We understand that later this is going to be pretty much the jumping off point, to get everybody under this digital system to eventually bring in the MOTB, right? The micro C-hip, right? And we're seeing him do this in a gradual way to where he's making it seem like it's convenient. He's making it seem like it's for security, he gives all these excuses, all these reasons, as to why we're doing it like this or why we're going digital, and ultimately, again, as I said, at the end, what's waiting people is the MOTB, right? Because that's the end goal, for Esau, is to have everybody micro C-hipped, so they can be tracked and traced, right? And that way he can have full control over where you go, what you do, what you eat, what you buy, right? He'll have full control over you, right? But let me read a little bit into this article and we'll get some precepts. Lord willing, let's be edifying. All right. So as the title says, I'm read it again. It says EU denies entry to 27,000 travelers under the new EES border system. So it says new digital border checks flag 700 as security threats across Europe. So they're pretty much giving you letting you know, right, that this system, is working, right? That is going to keep Europe safe from these security threats, right? Quote unquote. But it says Brussels, right? Thousands of people were refused entry to the EU and almost 700 identified as a security threat since the phasing in of a new border check system that became fully operational Friday, Brussels said. The so-called entry-exit system, or EES, replaces passport stamps with a digital registration in a bid to make travel to Europe more efficient and secure. Right? They're using these words, throwing these words out to you: efficient, secure, right? According to the European Commission, more than 52 million crossings were registered since its initial launch in October last year, the Commission said. Entry was refused more than 27,000 times, including to almost 700 people who were identified as posing a security threat to the Union, it added. With the EES, we are taking control of who enters and leaves the EU, when and where, commented Magnus Brunner, the European Union's Commissioner for Internal Affairs. It is used by the EU's 27 countries, with the exception of Ireland and Cyprus, as well as by Norway, Iceland, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein, which are not EU members but are part of the Schengen free movement area. Under the scheme, non-EU travelers arriving for short stays are asked for their passport number, to provide fingerprints, and to have their photo taken at automated kiosks. So it's the biometrics, right? You're going to have your picture, you're going to have your fingerprint, right? And all this is going to be tied in with your passport number, and that whole, identification system. But it says, hold on. The related information is recorded in a digital file, allowing authorities to better share information and know when people entered and exited the country, right? So this is all a means to be able to track and trace you, right? When you left and when you came, right? But like I said, this is all ultimately going to be more streamlined whenever they introduce the MOTB, right? Once they introduce the MOTB, they're going to be able to monitor you everywhere you are. It's just like your phone. Your phone has a track and trace system. What do you call it? The location. I forgot what it's called, but pretty much where you can share your location, and also pretty much like whenever you be able to see what's around you. Like if you go on Google Maps, you activate that share location or whatever the fuck it's called. I can't remember what it's called really, but pretty much they can track and trace you, right? Just due to the cell towers and whatever. But since you're gonna have this C-hip or this this micro C-hip inside your body, they're gonna constantly you're gonna be connected to the Internet of Things, right? And they're gonna be able to track and trace wherever it is you go. As long as there's some type of Wi-Fi, some type of service around you, as long as you're in the grid, they can be able to monitor you, know where your exact location, and we understand that this new system, this micro C-hip, is going to be integrated to this system that we're seeing. Because when you go to a store, what do you see? You see these tap to pay devices, or registers, right? Where your card, your debit card, whenever you go to check out, you can just tap to pay, right? Because it has that chip, in the card, right? So, and people have been paying, with their, there's videos online, people paying with their chip in their hand. So it's not far fetched, man. This is coming real fast and real soon, right? Especially with the way the economy is going right now. They're preparing for a crash so that way they can have a reason, and an excuse to pretty much mandate this, right? And you have all these poly crises going on around the world, especially here in America, to where they can easily start pushing this, right? They can get rid of the dollar, rid of physical cash altogether. They already got rid of the pennies because it's costing too much to make. It costs them more to make a penny than the actual penny itself. So, they got rid of the penny. So, and eventually, it might be more expensive it might be too expensive to actually print these things, or the dollars and the the nickels, the quarters, and all that, to where they're just gonna do away with that altogether, right? And they're gonna give you the reason, it's more secure, it's more convenient, you won't lose your money, all these different excuses, just to pretty much get people integrated into the system, right? But understand that if you take this MOTB, because there might come to a point where we might have to get that, register ourselves in the digital system, right? But once you take that MOTB, that's it. That's over, right? You can't repent from that. You take you get implanted, right, in your hand, and in your right hand, your left hand. You get the brain C-hip, wherever it is you get the C-hip, right? You're through, right? So that's something we over here at Great Millstone, we heavily preach about not taking this, because we understand that if you take this thing, that's it. Your ass is grass, right? There's no coming back after that. All right. But anyway, let me read a little bit more. It says it will enable authorities to identify risks in real time, tackle overstays more efficiently or more effectively, said the EU's executive vice president for security and democracy. So they're saying that it's for security and democracy. It says, but the system has raised concerns among transport providers and passengers who feared longer queues at airports and train stations. The commission said it remained in close contact with member states on the implementation, adding registration took on average only 70 seconds, which is a very short time period for non-EU citizens. Right, so that letting you know that this is quick. And once you're registered, it'll be even a more streamlined process, right? You won't have to deal with the TSA. You won't have to wait in lines for a long time. All they gotta do is just, you're already registered, so you just walk through whatever, cameras or whatever. But soon it's gonna get to a point where they're gonna be like, oh, that's not enough, right? It's not enough security, especially with these deep fakes, people wearing these masks and shit. They're gonna be like, oh, that's not enough. People are getting through and they're wearing disguises, right? It shows you in that movie, Total Recall, the old one, but even also the new one. How he was trying to get through this checking system, but he was wearing a mask, right? Well, hey, they might use that as an excuse. That's not enough, so we're gonna need to have you, see him. We're gonna need to know your whereabouts. We're gonna have to, because everybody's gonna be deemed as a security risk, right? Already with the Patriot Act, they deem pretty much all Americans as terrorists, So imagine once things start to amplify, things start to get worse. People start rioting over the just the bullshit that is going on over here, and people not being able to pay their bills and really upset at the policies and at the way the government is being ran. Now even more, right? Even more of a reason to deem everybody a security risk. Your different belief systems, your political views, right? Because that whole credit system is coming, right? The social credit score, right? Where whatever you post online, whatever you say, whatever you do, what I'm saying, all that is going to be, put in some type of algorithm. That's the reason why they have these data centers, right? So they can put you through this algorithm and be able to rank you on pretty much if you're pretty much deemed a threat or not, right? Which is going to happen relatively quick. But anyway, let's go ahead and get some precepts. I actually want to start off with 2nd Ezra 15. And just real quick, verse 17, it says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Right? And this is talking about martial law, right? But it's also going to be, due to the fact that people might not want to subscribe, to the digital system. So if you don't subscribe to the digital system, or if you don't get that micro C-hip eventually, you ain't going to be able to go nowhere. You're going to be stuck at whatever your location you're at, because the only way to be able to cross the border or cross some type of checkpoint is for you to, register yourself. Right? So there ain't going to be no flying, no taking the train. They might cross state borders, state lines, to where you're going to have to get, the digital ID because some states require it, or at the end of the day, all this is going to be, nationwide and worldwide, right? They're already starting it again with the EU, and if the EU is already doing it, America's not that far behind, right? Now, the only thing that's stopping the United States is because the United States got the Constitution, but they're ready to wipe their ass with that shit, right? So all this shit is coming at a very rapid pace. They're just setting up, the chess pieces in a certain position to where they can checkmate, the Americans population, right? Now let me get this. Let's go to Daniel. Chapter 8 and verse 25. It says, and through his policy, now this is talking about Antiochus, right, or Antiochus Epiphanes, right? But it says, but we understand that your top elite, which are really the ones that are in power, they're coming in the same mindset, and they're using their politicians like Donald Trump, right? These different presidents all across the globe, to push their agenda, right? But it says, Daniel 8 and 25, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, right? Through policy, right? Through all these, different, what they call it, order abacao, right? Problem, reaction, solution. Here it is, a problem will happen, a crisis will occur, and people will want a solution to the problem, and then here he is, with the solution that takes away your freedom, but it gives you a form of security, right? And that's a incremental thing that they're doing to eventually get you pretty much what they're trying to do is bottleneck you into submitting into this totalitarian form of control, to where they have full control and full say-so of what you eat, what you drink, where you go, what you do, what you spend your money on, right? And we see that through this different ideas that the WEF is coming out with, like carbon tax credits, you know what I'm saying? Again, a social credit score, right? You're going to be able to say whatever it is you want to say. You're going to be monitored, pretty much you're going to have to fit in this world that they're trying to curate, right? And if you don't fit, well, you know what? You ain't going to eat, right? And this is going to take the whole world. This is going to be a global thing. So if you don't, get in line, essentially you're going to be out the grid, right? You might get locked up, tossed into a prison. You have movies like Equilibrium, that one movie, Fahrenheit. I forgot the full name, but it's something Fahrenheit, right? With the Bible is banned. There's many different movies, that go into this. That George Orwell book, I can't remember the title as well, 1980 something or 70 something, I can't remember. But the point being is that this is coming, right? This dystopian type of society, is really on its way, and that's why they're causing all this war and all this chaos, to pretty much give people no choice but to submit and to, get overwhelmed with all the evil that's about to come, in order to have them just break down and be like, okay, we need y'all to, to institute normalcy, right? And it's going to come by the way of them, having this beast system in full online and operational, right? But anyway, Daniel 8 and 25, it says, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. And what's that craft? Him having that global dominance, him setting up his new world order, right? And it says, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many, right? Because what they're telling you, this is for peace, this is for safety, this is for security, not knowing that you people are being set up to be played. A great deception is about to be, executed here on the planet Earth through, this devil using words like peace and safety, right? The scripture talk about, they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, right? And that sudden destruction is coming, man. People don't see it. People don't see the setup, but we over here at Great Millstone, starting from our apostles and elders on down, we see this, right? We see the okie doke, as they say, about to be, laid out, about to be executed, right? But for the majority of the people, they don't see it. So they're going to be caught up in this storm. They're going to be caught up in this madness and this, you know, great setup. And a lot of people are going to die. Right? This is why over here, you know, we're over here warning our people, because this warning is for our people, you know, to repent and get right before the day of great evil comes. Right? Now, ultimately, we'll understand only 1/3 is going to receive this truth, and 2/3 is going to be taken, you know, by these different plagues and different forms of evil, right? Because that's all prophecy, you know. But we're doing our job as men of the Lord and getting the blood off our hands, because we know, you know, and since we know, then we can be held liable for not warning. You see? But nevertheless, the warning is going out, and those who don't want to get right, those who still want to continue on in the ways of the world, you know, y'all go ahead and continue, man. At the end of the day, as the scripture says, you should know it through death by pain, right? But those of us that, you know, that are sincere, those of us that, you know, are pretty much, you know, acknowledging that, you know, this is the truth. Hey, we just gotta do, you know, continue, you know, to strive for the kingdom of heaven, continue to, you know, do what's pleasing in the sight of the Lord, so that way whenever this time comes, you know, we can have that hedge of protection around us. Because again, great evils is coming, man. Great evils is coming, and this devil is about to pretty much roll up on the whole earth. Right? As a matter of fact, what's that? Revelation 12, I believe. Bear with me. Yeah, right here. Revelation 12:12, it says, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." You see, because his time is being cut short, and he sees it. Right? He sees the chariots. He sees Yahushua on his way over here. You know, he sees, I mean, a lot of things has been revealed to this man. You know, we don't know what he knows, but we know he's been shown a lot of things, right? He's tapped into, you know, the Project Looking Glass. You know, he has CERN and all these things, right? So he understands that he has a short time to operate, you know, and accomplish whatever it is that he wants to accomplish, which we understand what he's trying to accomplish. He's trying to gain the blessing, right? The blessing that was given unto our forefather Jacob or Isaac. Jacob, Salakia, right? What he wants to do is he wants to get that blessing, you know, of dominance over the earth, right? And just reigning over the heavens, right? That's what he wants. But we understand that him going about it, you know, his own way is ultimately going to lead to his destruction, you know, because pursuant to 2nd Ezra's 6 and 9, you know, it says Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning with the father. So we know that Esau's time is going to end soon, and after that we're going to be in power. But he's trying to prevent that. He's trying to remain in power forever, which it makes sense. You know, anybody, you know, who is in power, you know, they'll want to remain in power. You know, and anybody who has done as much wickedness as Esau, he wouldn't want to face the repercussions and the judgment behind all the evil that he has committed. You know, he'll want to, you know, escape it. But at the end of the day, there's no escape for what's coming, right? But he's going to do whatever it is, you know, he's going to bring all that wrath upon, you know, mainly Jake, to the pretty much the apple of the Lord's eye, to try to, you know, so-called have an upper hand over the Most High, which we understand that's a vain imagination, right? But anyway, let's get from here. Isaiah 32 in verse 7, it says, "The instruments also of the churl are evil. He devises wicked devices to destroy the poor with lying words. even when the needy speak right or speaketh right. Right, the instruments also of the true are evil. And what's one of the instruments that he's trying to implement? Really, is this digital system, right? This digital system, is just a way to, like I said, get everybody in a database to where he's going to be able to track and trace to the use of AI, to the use of what they call Palantir, the Project Gideon. He's going to be able to know your whereabouts, recognize, your face through different CCTV cameras, right? And like I said, everything's going to be digital, so he's going to be, and you're going to have to operate through that digital system, which is going to be pretty much, controlled through somebody behind the computer. You see? And then they can make the decisions whether you're worthy or you're not. Really the AI is going to make the decisions. Okay, this guy, says some bad things about the president or speaking against, America, or, doesn't have the political views that is required, or the religious views that is required. So you're going to be cut off. Right. And here it is. We're just preaching about the Bible. We're preaching righteousness, but soon this truth is going to be deemed hate speech. It's going to be deemed pretty much is going to be deemed hate speech, right? And they're going to ban it, and they're going to make it illegal to preach this word, right? They're going to start, coming after brothers. The persecution is going to come. All this is coming, but we're gonna stand on faith. The elect is gonna stand on faith, and the Most High is gonna deliver them, through these evil times, right? The Most High is about to show magnificent works here in these last days, man. He's gonna do it through His people, right? So hey, we just gotta continue to stand strong, man, because the Most High is about to show out for real. He's already showing out, with the left hand. How much more whenever he pulls out the right? You see? Now let me see. Let's get another one. Let's get Micah 2, verse 1. It says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand." Right? And this is something, that they've been working up on for a long time. They have multiple councils, multiple preparations, right? This is something that has been on the top of the minds of the elite, right? But now that they got the power, they feel like the moment is right to do this now, right? So they're just going out full throttle and executing this plan, man. Right, and as you've been seeing, everything has been escalating a lot quicker ever since the whole C-19, the whole vid situation. Ever since that happened, everything's been moving quick. These devils have been operating in a more and more rapid pace, to where things have been more streamlined for them, so they can, have things execute. They can execute things at a more rapid pace. The people have been dumbed down to a certain degree where they're not fighting back. But soon things is gonna, which we see Esau, coming into a position of strait, a position of difficulty, right? The scriptures talk about in Job how in the fullness of his sufficiency he shall be in straits, right? And we see him coming through different obstacles, and coming and facing resistance, but we don't see that type of resistance, with the people, because people have been dumbed down, eating this GMO foods, this polluted air, polluted water, and taking a lot of distractions, the bread and circuses, whether it's video games, sports, the drama with the celebrities, there's all kinds of nonsense. They be pushing out here to keep people distracted. But soon all that distraction is going to go out the window, and people are going to start, waking up, to where they're going to start rioting. They're going to start revolting, to where, They're gonna start coming after the senators, their politicians, their president, and they're gonna have to implement that Insurrection Act. They're gonna have to implement, the martial law, and get everybody pretty much back in order, right? But again, hey, this man is executing what he has planned in his mind, right? And this is pretty much the way things is gonna go, right? All pursuing the prophecy, right? We're not telling you anything that scriptures is not talking about, right? But we see it. We see this man moving in this direction, right? Now let me see. Let's get from here. Let's just get Revelation 13. Revelation 13 and verse 16. It says, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads." Right? So that's that MOTB. That's that micro C hip. Right? Which is going to be implemented anywhere in your body, but mainly, your hands or your forehead. Right? And through these means, you're going to be able to buy or sell. As a matter of fact, it's going to say in verse 17, it says, "And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name." Right? So you're going to have to be registered into the system with the MOTB, right? This digital system that they're trying to implement, or they are implementing, right? But not only that, you're going to have that micro C hip implanted into your body in order to be able to operate in the future system that they have in mind, right? Right now, it's just going to be, like I said, like your pretty much like a palm scan, fingerprint scan, and your face scan, right? Pretty much your biometrics. But eventually, like I said, it's going to be a physical implant under your skin for them to or for you to have full access of whatever the system has to offer. But yeah, that's pretty much it, though. This is what's coming. So as we always say, man, hey, you trials, man, y'all gotta get right, man. Get prepared spiritually, because there's nothing you can prepare for physically for what's coming, but in a spiritual sense, you got to get right. Put off the ways of the world. Put on Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah, so you can have that hedge of protection, right? Because no amount of prepping is going to be able to deliver you. As far as a physical preparation, none of that is going to be able to deliver you in these days that's coming, right? The power of deliverance is going to be, through Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah, right? Because the Most High, He's the one that decides whether you live or die, right? He's in control of everything, right? As a matter of fact, before I close out, let me just close it off with this. Deuteronomy, I think it's 32. Yeah, 32 and 39. It says, "See now that I, even I am He, there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive, I wound and I heal, neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand." And so the Most High is the one that decides who lives or dies. He has control over life and death, right? Over your situation, in these evil times that's coming. He can make it to where you don't eat. He can make it to where you do eat. He can make it to where, you end up eating your family. He can make it to where your whole family is good. He can put evils on you. He can take evils away from you. He can deliver out of you. He can deliver you out of many evils. Right? But as it says, neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. So there's nothing you can do that the Most High doesn't want to put in your life or cause to happen to you. Right? So again, hey, it is important to fear the Lord. Right? Scriptures say how the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Right? So, hey, if you don't fear the Lord, hey, you're a fool. Because He's the one, again, he's the one that dictates everything, right? But anyway, I don't want to rant too long. I'm going to go ahead and close it out by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai B'Hashem, Racha Quadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and rule well. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing his word throughout the four corners of the earth in truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Until the next time, I'm going to say Shalom, Kwam Yasha Allah.